Hi students, I'm Dr. Bhavna. In this lecture, we are going to continue with the topic that is called as evolution. So in the last class, we already have done with the topic evolution. So what we have done in that? Basically, when we have started with evolution topic, biological evolution we have done. So in this biological evolution, simple about microbes and all we have done. So what are the theories which we have done? I told you in neat point of view important questions. Those are related to, like the first thing I have told you, that is related to convergent evolution as well as divergent. Then next about adaptive radiation. The third is the scientists' names as well as what are the theories which are put forward by them. So basically when we have started with biological evolution, first theory I have discussed about Charles Darwin's theory. So Darwin, basically the essence of Darwin's theory is two important points. That is nothing but natural selection as well as branching descendants. Branching descendants. So these are the two theories which were put forward by Charles Darwin. So he basically proved the natural selection theory. Like how he proved, you all know that microbes usually divide into millions and millions. Normally if a microbe or a fungus or something is put in a container, you see it will develop into numerous microbes within very few hours, but for fishes and all it takes millions and millions. So if you put a millions years, so if you put a small petri dish as well as a medium surrounding it, and if you put numerous microbes in this and name it as A, another medium, you change the medium here, and if you put numerous microbes, this is B. So basically in this medium these microbes will grow, but the same microbes, if you are transferring it into another medium, first medium they will be there, if you are transferring them to the second medium, basically these microbes only few will grow, rest other microbes will dominate here in this B place. So basically what the nature will select is the fitness of the individual. Basically I told you Charles Darwin specified about the fitness of the individual is important for the nature selection. So nature usually selects the fittest in one. So basically here another microbes are also growing here and they give rise to more and more progeny. Here only few microbes are growing. In B, so many microbes are growing. So the B is the best fittest than A. So usually the nature selects for the fitness. So nature selects the B thing than A. So this proves the natural selection. As well as I have described about the moths also. When there was no industrialization, usually white moths survived. When there was industrialization, black moths survived. So I have discussed about that point also. Then later, another important question to be remembered. Before this Charles Darwin's theory only, Lamarck, a famous scientist called as Lamarck, he described about the giraffes, usually about the use and disuse theory. He described about the use and disuse. So use and disuse means, suppose giraffes, they did not have elongated neck in the earlier days, but for eating food, they usually have climbed they used to elongate their neck to reach the tall trees. So what is the benefit for them? Basically the use and disuse of organs. So they use their organ more. They used to elongate their neck continuously. If you do one thing continuously, you will get adapted to that. So the future generations of the giraffes also, they were also born with their elongated necks. So here what this Lamarck proved is, if you use the organ more, it will be beneficial. If you do not use the organ, in the future generations, that organ will disappear. So he want to say that about that use and disuse of organs, and he gave an example that is related to giraffes. So giraffes used to elongate their necks and reach the tall trees. So like that, Lamarck gave an example. Darwin, natural selection and branching descendants. Here, Lamarck use and disuse of organs. I want you all to remember clearly regarding this. Then Thomas Malthus. Thomas Malthus, he also same thing. He described about the populations and about the resources. See, if resources are there, perfectly resources are there, then the population size is also stable, then the population can survive. Means, suppose if you have somewhere resources around you, suppose food is available only for 100 people, and if only 100 people are there, then it is good. Population size is stable, then resources are also stable. So the 100 people can utilize these food packets of 100. But if the population size becomes more, that is, if 200 people are there and only 100 food packets are there, then the population size is not stable, and then the resources will become very limited. So this theory he proved about the populations. If resources are limited, population size also should be stable. If resources are available a lot, then the population size can increase. Anything is related to population size as well as resources only. So these are the three theories that you should remember about the natural selection, and that nature selects for the fitness. Then about the Lamarck, he described use and disuse of organs. This all will come under biological evolution only. Then Thomas Malthus, he described about the population size and the resources. He compared with the resources and the population size. So that point you should remember regarding this. So these are the three important points under biological evolution. Then later, Mendel, a famous scientist, Mendel, he also described about the inheritable factors, which the factors are inherited by the progeny. So he described about the inheritable factors as well as about the phenotypes he have discussed. Before Charles Darwin only he described. But the Charles Darwin, because the Charles Darwin is the famous scientist and his theories are only proved, he did not accept the Mendel's theory. So Mendel's theory was about the inheritable factors as well as the phenotypes. About the inheritable factors as well as about the phenotype. So he described about the inheritable factors as well as the phenotype. So these natural selection, branching descendants, Thomas Malthus, Lamarck, Mendel is inheritable factors as well as he described about the phenotype. So this is about the biological evolution process. The last theory which was left over is about the Hugo de Vries. Hugo de Vries, a famous scientist. Till now we have done Mendel inheritable factors, like that they'll ask you in NEET. Mendel, describe which type to describe phenotype, genotype, like that they'll give its phenotype. As well as they'll describe about the inheritable factors. What are the factors which are inherited by the Mendel? As well as they'll describe about, suppose Lamarck, who specified use and disuse of organs. Lamarck, Thomas Malthus, like that. On populations, who gave is Thomas Malthus. Lamarck, use and disuse of organs. Darwin, natural selection. Mendel, inheritable factors. Next, Hugo de Vries. It is mutations. He described about the mutations. He told that mutations are only responsible for change in the species. For different species change, mutations are only responsible. He specified about the mutations. So basically, he specified about the topic called as mutations. In mutations, he specified that mutations are random and directionless. Random and directionless means in a perfect direction they are not followed, as well as they are random. They may come in the future generations or they may not come in the future generations. There is no specific path for that. So he described about the species as species are responsible by the mutations responsible, and they are random and directionless basically. And he said that Charles Darwin told that according to Charles Darwin, they are Charles Darwin's theory. Everyone used to compare with Charles Darwin only because he's a famous scientist and his theory only was most accepted. So he said that Darwin specified that the species are small and directional. So important need question comes here. Like small, who specified that they are small and directional? Means Charles Darwin. Remember only one so that next one will be easy for you. Like small and directional means Darwin. Random and directionless, and about the mutations who have specified is nothing but Hugo de Vries. So Charles Darwin's theory, they are small as well as directional. They used to follow a specific path. As well as Hugo de Vries said that mutations, they lead to speciation. Speciation, which in turn lead to saltation. He specified speciation as well as saltation. Speciation means which give rise to new species. Mutations will give rise to new species. Then these new species will give rise to saltation. Saltation means what? Highest point of mutations. That is, suppose this is the highest peak of the mutation. The highest peak when you attain with a mutation, it is called as saltation. So that point also you should remember. Who described about this saltation process and what is saltation? Means highest point of mutation is nothing but saltation. And who specified about this? It is nothing but Hugo de Vries specified about that. He told that mutations will give rise to new species, means speciation. This speciation will in turn lead to saltation, where highest point of mutation is attained. So about that he specified. Next he specified that mutations are random and directionless. He specified. I want you to all to be very clear regarding this aspect. And about the Charles Darwin, he specified that they are small as well as directional. So that point also I want you all to remember. So this is about the, they'll ask you in NEET, Darwin's theory. According to Darwin, mutations are small and directional, or they are small and directionless, or small and random, or random and directional, like that they'll ask. I want you to all to remember this point very clearly. Mutations are small and directional according to Darwin, random and directionless according to Hugo de Vries. So this is about the main biological evolution. So till now in evolution we have done about the what is convergent evolution, what are the theories that are related, Big Bang theories and all, about the 4 theories we have learned. Then about Charles Darwin's main theory, we have seen about that. Then about convergent evolution, divergent evolution. Then later about the adaptive radiation, all are important in a point of view. Then next about the biological evolution, which describes the different scientists and what theories they have specified. So this. Next we are going to another topic that is called as Hardy-Weinberg's equilibrium. So in the next topic, we are specifying about Hardy-Weinberg. Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. So this is also important in NEET point of view. Normally, suppose if we take a population, in a population basically we can find out the frequency of occurrence of alleles of a gene or a locus. In a population, normally we can find out frequency of occurrence of allele of a gene or a locus. About the frequency of occurrence of a gene we can find out basically in a population. So in this Hardy-Weinberg's equilibrium, these alleles also play a very important role, as well as the frequency of a population should remain the same and constant throughout the generations. It should remain same and constant throughout generations. So these are the two important points that you should remember. Nothing but the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Suppose you take a population, normally a population is taken. We should find out here what is the frequency of occurrence of genes, what is the frequency of occurrence of alleles in a population. So when we are finding out, Hardy-Weinberg told that the principle, the frequency should remain the same. Means suppose from you to your next, from father to the son, basically the genes should be same, as well as from son to their son, again the frequency of occurrence of genes should be same. So basically the genes should be same for different generations. It should be constant, it should not vary. So the principle behind the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is nothing but the frequency should remain the same in a population. It should remain constant from generation to generation. It should not vary from generation to generation. The frequency of occurrence of genes should remain the same throughout all the generations. So then what will happen? If the frequency remains same, the gene pool, the genes also or alleles also should remain the same. Genes or alleles also should remain same. If frequency is same, genes also should be same. So this balance between the frequency of occurrence of genes as well as the gene pool, that is genes or alleles also should remain same, I told you. So the balance between these is called as genetic equilibrium. Equilibrium means what in normal sense? Equilibrium means there should be balance between the two. That is only called as equilibrium. So here in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium also, equilibrium means there should be balance between the frequency of occurrence of alleles as well as the genes also should remain constant throughout all the generations. So the Hardy-Weinberg, he specified this, that it should be constant frequency. So these are the two important points that you should remember. In a population, don't get so much confused regarding this. Suppose you take a small population and you should identify the frequency of occurrence of alleles. So when you're finding out the frequency of alleles, he specified that frequency should remain same and it should remain constant not only now but it should remain constant throughout the generations. That is the one which he specified. As well as the gene pool, means the genes or alleles also should remain the same. Then only there will be proper equilibrium. This is only called as genetic equilibrium. Genetic equilibrium. how he specified about the genetic equilibrium is, I'll tell you. So how he have specified about the genetic equilibrium? He gave one formula like about the what is the sum of individuals in a population, what is the frequency. So he gave like, suppose the alleles A and A as well as alleles, these are alleles, okay, or genes. The sum of individuals should remain constant. So he gave a algebraic equation. So he gave algebraic equation like he gave, suppose for a population the allele is capital A, then he referred the sum of individuals as p square. P square. For another population it is small a, then he specified it as q square. So he balanced between the two, p plus q whole square equal to p square plus q square plus 2pq. This is the thing which Hardy Weinberg specified in his equilibrium. This is all called Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, right? So he gave an algebraic equation regarding this. So he specified the sum of individuals of alleles in a population, suppose it is double A, then he is referring it as p square. And when it is small a, he is referring it as q square. So the algebraic equation he gave as p plus q whole square equal to p square plus q square plus 2pq. Then what he's specifying in this? So this is the equation which balances the frequency of occurrence of alleles in a population. So this is important in neat point of view. P square plus q square plus 2pq was given by whom? Hardy-Weinberg. So according to Hardy-Weinberg, the frequency of occurrence of genes should remain constant throughout the generations. The simple logic he had given. Then genes also should remain constant, he specified. So this is about the Hardy-Weinberg's principle. So next, in this Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, normally it should remain constant, but some factors may vary from one individual to other. So how it will vary in a population? So there are five factors which influence the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. That is nothing but gene flow, genetic equilibrium, mutations, natural selection, as well as genetic drift. So what are the five factors which influence the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium? He says it should be constant from generation to generation, frequency. But it may also vary. Why it will vary? What are the factors which will help in disrupting his factor? It is nothing but gene flow, genetic drift, genetic equilibrium, mutations, as well as natural selection. These 5 points you should remember. 3 are starting with G. So remember like that. Genes from one person to another person may vary due to flow. Due to drift also it may vary. It may vary due to equilibrium. It may vary due to, if suppose you are suffering from some mutations, the genes will vary from one person to another. And the nature, due to natural selection by the nature also, it may vary. So these are the 5 factors which influence the Hardy-Weinberg's equilibrium. So when they are disrupting the Hardy-Weinberg's equilibrium, basically, what is happening in this? So these are the 5 factors which influence, I told you. So Suppose when there is migration from one place to another, suppose you people are migrating, if you're moving from one place to another, you will be considered in the old population as well as you will be considered in the new population also. So if this occurs by chance, suppose if you're moving, if you're not intentionally moving from one place to another, if you're moving due to some by chance, this is called as genetic drift. If you are moving from one place to another, if there is migration from one place to another, you will be considered under one population and other population also. But if this all occurs by chance, it is called as genetic drift. As well as if you are moving from one place to another, I told you, then the old population, because you are the original population where you are found, that group of population is called as founder effect. Founder population, founder effect. By normal English term only we can understand. Like founder means what? You only founded that place. Before you were originally founded that place. So that's why you belong to that group, not the changed one. Suppose if you are moving from Maharashtra to Madhya Pradesh, if you are moving actually, then you are considered under Maharashtra only. So you are the founder population. The original founder population is called as founder effect. So this is the originally drifted population. Don't get confused regarding this. Simple point about Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium you should remember is frequency of occurrence of alleles in a population. That you should remember. Then p square plus q square plus 2pq you should remember that equation. What are the 5 factors which are changing, which will help in changing the Hardy-Weinberg's equilibrium? It is nothing but gene flow, genetic drift, genetic equilibrium, mutations, as well as natural selection. These are the 5 factors which help in changing. Then I told you, if there is migration from one place to another, you will be considered under the old population as well as new population. If it occurs by chance, then it is called as genetic drift. Originally you were found in one population, I told you Maharashtra as well as Madhya Pradesh. If you are found in the original population because you have moved, you are considered under the founder population and this is called as founder effect. As well as about the natural selection also, he gave 3 graphs about the natural selection. This is the 3 graphs I'll tell you. So in these 3 graphs, this, if they give you this diagram and ask you, this is called as stabilization. This is called as directional. This is disruptional. Simple thing to be remembered. If they give you this stabilization, means the natural selection, the population remains stabilized here correctly. So stabilized population. If it is slightly moving to the side, means it is changing its direction. So it is called as directional change. If there is no perfect stabilization or direction, if 2 graphs are seen, first it is going up, then it is coming down, again going up, again coming down. This is called as disruptional. By English terms only you can understand. Stabilization, perfect stabilization. Directional, changing its direction. Disruptional, more coming out, down, out, down. So this is the 3 graphs which we have specified for the natural selection. So if they give you these diagrams and ask you to identify in NEET, you should identify properly. Stabilization slightly means graphs should be straight and stabilized. If side it's moving, then it is directional. If there is 2 waves, then it is disruptional. So these three are important in NEET point of view. So this is about the Hardy-Weinberg's equilibrium. Don't get confused. I have told you those 3-4 important points which you should remember, as well as these three graphs you should remember: stabilization, directional, disruption. Enough for Hardy-Weinberg. And the famous equation, algebraic equation given is p square plus q square equal plus 2pq equal to p plus q whole square. P square, you are referring to the sum of the population of an allele basically. This q square also sum of the population of another allele. So these are the two different alleles which you are talking about. Alleles means nothing but genes, okay? So that is behind the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. What are the factors which are associated with Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium? So the factors which are associated with that are, which will influence where genetic equilibrium, if it is not maintained. What are the 5 factors which are affecting not to maintain this genetic equilibrium? They are nothing but genetic drift, gene flow, mutations, natural selection, as well as genetic equilibrium. These are the 5 factors which will influence the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. I want everyone to remember these 5 things because it is very important in each point of view. They'll give you like options and they'll give you all of the above also. So gene flow, genetic equilibrium, genetic drift, mutations, as well as natural selection. And if you are moving from one place to another, it is called as migration. So you will be counted under the older population, as well as whatever you are shifting to the new population, there also you will be considered basically. So from one population to another population you are moving means you are again considered there. That is migration under. If this occurs by chance, if you are moving from one place to another by chance, then it is called as genetic drift. As well as drift means change from one place to another. As well as the third important thing that you should remember is nothing but founder effect. What is founder effect? Numerous times it is asked. The original population where you are actually founded, and when you are shifting from one place to another, but also you are under the founder effect only. Means I already told you, I gave numerous examples for that. Suppose you are moving from Maharashtra to Madhya Pradesh, but you are considered under Maharashtra only. So you are the founder effect. Means what, you are generally originally founded in that area. Later wherever you move, that is not considered. So founder effect means wherever you are found at that originally from where you are coming from, native place, that is nothing but founder effect. Already I told you about the 3 graphs. That is nothing but one is stabilization graph, another one is directional graph, another is disruptional. Stabilization means at a specific point of time it is stabilized basically. So stabilization. When you come to directional, it turns direction in the graph basically. So it is directional. Then disruptional means upwards downwards movement, again upwards again downwards movement. So this is called as disruptional. So directional, disruptional, as well as stabilization. These are the 3 important graphs in each point of view. So this is about the Hardy-Weinberg's equilibrium, which we have discussed in detail in the last class. I am revising for those who have missed the class, so I have revised. Next we are going to another topic that is called as origin and evolution of the organisms, a brief account on evolution. So basically in this chapter we have done about numerous topics, right? About the, now again in deep we are going to see how actually the man came into existence. So we have read till now numerous theories regarding that, how they came and all. Now originally how many years ago, what was from first, what was from next, what was from, everything we will see in this evolution. So brief account on evolution topic, basically about approximately 2000 million years ago. That is 2000 MYA means, don't get confused. Numerous times they will ask in NEET. MYA means million years ago. That is the short form of MYA, means million years ago. So approximately 2000 million years ago. Approximately 2000 million years ago, what has happened is the first cellular forms on the earth were originated. Cells, basically, they were originated about 2000 million years ago. So how non-cellular forms were developed? Cellular forms, they were developed, we know. Till now we have seen numerous theories, but how were non-cellular forms developed? That everyone don't know how non-cellular forms were developed. That was still a mystery regarding that. So how were non-cellular forms developed? Basically, we were hearing that about, suppose, photosynthesis, like sunlight. Sunlight is coming and coming on the water. If some UV rays are falling on the water, then water is basically split into, I have already told you, hydrogen and oxygen. If water is coming on the sunlight is coming and falling on the water, so water is split into hydrogen and oxygen. Like that, numerous non-cellular forms also came into existence. But now we will see how cellular forms came into existence. So about 2000 million years ago, the cellular forms came into existence. And what has happened? First, unicellular organisms were seen. Means unicellular means only single cell is present. So those organisms were seen. Later, multicellular organisms, numerous cells were formed and multicellular forms came into existence. From unicellular, multicellular organisms came. After multicellular organisms, what has happened? Around, so from 2000 million years ago, numerous cellular forms started coming. Again later, around 500 million years ago, 500 million, first invertebrates were seen. Invertebrates. Invertebrates means what? Which don't have vertebral column. They are called as invertebrates, which don't have vertebral column. They were seen first. They were active on the planet called as Earth. This about 500 million years ago. This all is under archaeology, fossils, paleontological evidences. By these only we have found that around 500 million years ago, first invertebrates were originated. Later, after invertebrates, which came into play, that is nothing but around 350 million years ago. I want you all to remember these years because these are important. 2000 million years ago, first it was started. 500 million years ago, invertebrates. 350 million years ago, jawless fishes were seen. Jawless fishes. Then around 320 million years ago, seaweeds as well as plants and seaweeds were seen. First were invertebrates who do not have vertebral column. Next generation, around 350 million years ago, jawless fishes were seen which do not have jaws. What are the ones which I have specified in animal kingdom which do not have jaws? They are nothing but cyclostomata, Aegnatha, they were formed. Next. Then 320 million years ago, first plants came into existence on the earth. Seaweeds also were seen. After plants, with the growth of the plants, animals also came into existence. So I told you first 350 million years ago, these jawless fishes were seen. Latest in 1938, approximately, one jawless fish was seen, coelacanth. Coelacanth in one marine waters, this was identified, coelacanth. They became extinct already, but only one was seen actually. So the coelacanth were jawless fishes basically. The first amphibians which used to live both on land as well as in water. amphibians came into origin. First, by this animal kingdom we have read numerous classes. First, cyclostomata. Under cyclostomata, the coelacanth we had found in 1938 and all, we found this, but these became extinct actually. So first these were found. They are jawless fishes and they used to move between the land as well as in water. What are the organisms which live both in land as well as in water? They are nothing but amphibians. So first amphibians came into existence. These amphibians became extinct. Now whatever amphibians were there were frogs and salamanders. These all were there now at present. Then after amphibians, reptiles came into existence. First amphibians, then reptiles, then birds, then mammals came into existence. So first amphibians, after amphibians, reptiles. These reptiles also basically they also first lived on water only. They used to move between land and water. When they were on water, which is the famous one which is seen in water reptile is Ichthyosaurus. Ichthyosaurus, which is mostly seen in water. Reptile which is seen in water, Ichthyosaurus, in the olden days. Now what we see on the land is dinosaurs. This all came into existence around 200 million years ago. Reptiles came into existence 200 million years ago. So around 200 water, Ichthyosaurus was the famous one which is usually seen. Then on the land, dinosaurs. Dinosaurs belong to one Tyrannosaurus. Tyrannosaurus rex. Tyrannosaurus rex is the famous one which used to have dagger-like teeth. You all have heard about numerous dinosaurs which we see. So they have dagger, like they used to be 20 feet height. We all are 5 feet, 6 feet like that. They used to be 20 feet height and they have dangerous teeth and they used to move on the land. But don't know, before 65 million years ago, 65 million years ago, they disappeared from Earth. Still, people don't know why they have disappeared from the Earth. Some people were thinking that they became birds and they started flying. They reduced their size and they had wings and they started flying. Normally, reptiles means they used to walk on the ground, but later they had wings and they used to fly from one place to another. So they disappeared. Some thought that they became birds. Some thought that due to climatic changes they disappeared. They were not able to survive in this climate, so that's why they disappeared. So this is about the reptiles. First were amphibians, then reptiles. Then later birds came into existence. Birds. Then later birds. Birds were also seen around 60 million years ago, like that birds. From then birds also started, they are present. Reptiles also, now what reptiles are seen? That time dinosaurs were seen. Now crocodiles, turtles, tortoises, these are seen moving between land as well as in water. Next birds came. After birds, mammals. So these mammals, they are usually viviparous. Means they used to give birth to young ones. Numerous birth they used to give, as well as they used to keep their young ones in the mother's womb. They used to keep in the mother's womb and they used to survive, these mammals basically, and they used to have hair also on them, and they used to start moving from one place to another. Mammals means not only we humans. Humans were formed in the last stage, but first mammals means rabbits, gorillas, chimpanzees, all also come under mammals only. Numerous rabbits as well as everyone. So they also used to come there. So from there they are viviparous in nature, and they used to later, after few years, man also was originated few million years ago only, around some 15 million years ago, like that man came into existence on earth. So from the mammals only, in the last stage of mammals, we humans came. So I don't get so much confused what are these years and all. These are very important in each point of view. Simply you remember. See, like this you remember. I'll tell you. First, approximately, origin of man around 2000 million years ago. Cellular forms came into existence. These are MYA, means million years ago. Cellular forms came into existence. Write this flowchart, and in the last minute when you're going to need, just read and go. Around 500 million years ago, it is invertebrates, means which do not have vertebral column. They came into existence. Later, around 350 million years ago, around 350 million years ago, jawless fishes. Around 300 million years ago, plants. 200 million years ago, first amphibians, then reptiles, then birds, then mammals, finally. So this is the simple thing. Till now what I have said in one flowchart I have given. See, 2000 million years ago cellular form, 500 million years ago first were invertebrates, 350 million years ago jawless fishes, 300 million years ago plants, 200 million years ago animals, amphibians, first reptiles, then birds, then mammals. These four came into existence, these all four. Then I told you in 350 million years ago, jawless fish, coelacanth was identified. A jawless fish was identified, and it used to move from one place to another between land as well as in water. So that's why they're called under amphibians. But now amphibians evolved, like frogs and all came into existence now. Before, jawless fishes were there. Next, reptiles. That time dinosaurs were there. Some used to live in water, some used to live in land. When they were in water, they are called as ichthyosaurus. 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 If they are on land, they are called as Tyrannosaurus. Tyrannosaurus Rex. If they are on, they used to have, they are 20 feet high and used to have dagger like teeth. About 65 million years ago they disappeared. Why they have disappeared? Due to climatic changes, some thought that due to some climatic changes, some thought due to maybe some they have evolved into birds. Later birds came. Birds were normally present, all types of birds were there. Then later mammals. Mammals were having hair on them. They have mammary glands. They are viviparous in nature, and they came into existence. Slowly rabbits, chimpanzees and all. Then later we humans came into existence. So next we will see about the origin and of man. So first, origin of man. Around 15 million years ago, very short period, around 15 million years ago, first man-like ones, they were seen. Usually they are called as primates. So They are called as Dryopithecus ramapithecus. Dryopithecus and ramapithecus. Important NEET question. Dryopithecus are mostly ape-like. Ape-like means they are like monkeys. They used to be. Ramapithecus, they are mostly man-like. These were first seen around 15 million years ago. Dryopithecus, Ramapithecus. They used to move on the land. They used to walk like gorillas and chimpanzees, which we see now. They used to walk like them. Dryopithecus, Ramapithecus. They are ape-like. Which is ape-like? Important NEET question. Which is man-like? Ramapithecus is man-like. Dryopithecus is ape-like. So they were first seen on the earth. They used to walk like gorillas and chimpanzees. Later, in 3 to 4 million years ago, around 3 to 4 millions, some people which were only 3 to 4 feet height, we all are 6 feet height or 5 feet height, we all are. But there were short men who walked in East Africa. East Africa they walked. And they were only 3 to 4 feet. They were usually seen 3 to 4 million years ago. 3 to 4 million years ago, 3 to 4 feet height people were walking in East Africa. So first was Dryopithecus ramapithecus. Then second is some people were walking. Then around 2 million years ago, Australopithecus. Some people were walking again in East Africa. They used to eat, see, weapons. We already told numerous early mans. Early mans, they belong to this group only, Australopithecus. So they used to break the weapons. They used to make weapons with the stones. As well as these people only ate numerous amounts of fruits. From different types of plants, these ate fruits. So, which type ate fruits? Which type? Important NEET question. This was asked. Australopithecus were man-like and they ate fruits and they used to have weapons with them, these people. So, first was 15 million years ago, Dryopithecus, Ramapithecus. Dryopithecus is ape-like, Ramapithecus is man-like. Next, 3 to 4 million years ago, East Africa, some people walked, only they were 3 to 4 feet height. Later, 2 million years ago, again in East Africa, some people were walking. They are called as Australopithecus. These are Dryorama. These are Australopithecus. They had weapons with them and they ate fruits. After this Australopithecus, around 1 million year ago, around 1 million year ago, numerous hominoid features, means humans like people, started coming around 1 million year ago. Hominoid features, hominoid means like humans. Before ones are also like humans only, but they used to walk very differently as well as they ate fruits and all. Originally man, human, means it came around 1 million year ago. These, before till Australopithecus, they all were resembling some animals, but around 1 million year ago, they were resembling like humans. So hominoid features like humans. The first one to be seen is Homo habilis. Second one is Homo erectus. Third is Neanderthal. The last one is Homo sapiens. These Homo habilis, they came into existence around few million years ago, around Suppose 50,000 years ago and all, these came into existence. Homo habilis first. I want you to remember in an order. Habilis, erectus here, when they were came into existence is not important. What is their brain capacity? Important neat question every year they used to ask. Next, Neanderthal Homo sapiens. Homo habilis, they did not eat meat. They did not eat any meat. That also was a specific feature for them. Homo erectus, they ate meat. Neanderthal, these buried their ones, like you see Egypt, people buried their who were died, they buried. From here Neanderthal, the people started burying the people who were dead. So these buried dead people. Next, we Homo sapiens, we are called as Homo sapiens. So Homo habilis, erectus, Neanderthal, Homo sapiens. Now what are their brain capacities? Important neat question. These brain capacities 650 to 800 cc. Homo habilis. Homo erectus is 900 cc. Neanderthal is 1400 cc. Homo sapiens also 1400 only cc. So this you should remember. Every time the brain capacity started increasing for man-like things. See, from Homo habilis were nothing but who did not eat meat. Homo erectus, who ate meat. Neanderthal, they buried their dead people. Homo sapiens, we humans. So starting with 650 to 800 cc, 800 cc, then 900, then 1400, then next also 1400 only. So like that, different brain capacities grew in size. Later, we Homo sapiens, agriculture was also around 10,000 years back. Agriculture was started, and we used to prepare our own food, and we started surviving. So this is about the chapter that is called as Origin and Evolution. So we have done with what is origin of life, different theories, what is convergent, divergent evolution, important neat question, what is adaptive radiation, important neat question. Then third, Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, only that equation is important. Middle I have told you like Lamarck specified use and disuse of organs, like that, those questions are important. Then later about the origin of the whole system around 2000 million years ago, 350, 500, 300, those all jawless fishes, first amphibians, then reptiles, birds, mammals. After that, humans came into existence. Dryopithecus, Ramapithecus around 15 million years ago. Then later, around 3 to 4 million years ago, some people walked in East Africa. Then around 2 million years ago, some Australopithecus who ate fruits. After Australopithecus, only humans came into existence. Hominoid features, primates were seen. First is Homo habilis, erectus, Neanderthal, Homo sapiens. 650 to 800 cc, 900, 1400. It was increasing the brain capacity. I want you to remember in an order. Later, these people did not eat meat. First, people did not eat meat. Later, other people ate meat. And next, who buried their young ones are Neanderthal. Who buried their dead people were Neanderthal. The last one, we humans, were Homo sapiens. So this is about the chapter. Next, we will start about the ecology chapter. So this is the important and neat point of view. Don't get confused regarding all these chapters, don't get confused. If you read 4 times, then only you can remember these all, because all years are important, brain capacities are important. These are numerous times asked in NEET. So that's why brain capacities are important to remember. Before once also you can neglect. but these about humans, because humans only, how they evolved is only important topic here. So compulsory they will ask in NEET related to all these questions. I want you all to be thorough with the years as well as what, when, who were developed, and what are, how many million years ago. This last part of origin and evolution is very much important. Okay, so next class we'll continue with ecology.